doing? My name's Alex from Baker River Chainsaw Sculpture. This is where I do my work. I've been doing this almost a year now, like as a business. It was a hobby like 5 or 6 years ago, kind of put it down, and then I was staying in Vermont last summer, and I ran into a local carver, and it kind of got me started back into it, and I haven't stopped since. I relocated to Rumney, New Hampshire, where I am now, on Quincy Road, and in October, when sculptures started popping up everywhere, people started noticing, stopping by, and almost every day I talk to at least 5 to 10 different people who, they just want to come by and see what it's about. So most of the time, a lot of chainsaw sculptures you see are usually mostly bears, which I'll do, but so yeah. I guess obviously it all starts out as a tree. Right now, in the limited time that I've been doing this, I've used just about only pine. There have been a couple of times where I used hardwoods. It was a lot harder on the tools and my joints, but pine seems to work out pretty good. It's easy to find, big pieces, and it's fairly cheap, and it's in abundance in this area. Okay, so when I get a load of logs, the last load of logs I got get dropped right here. This actually is my last piece. And because the ants ate the middle of this one, I really can't use it for much. I'll get to that later. But obviously, so you get a log. A lot of the things I do, either they're sculptures, which you would stand it up, and comparative to the size, if I wanted a 4-foot bear, then I'd want a log that's probably about 5.5 feet, so that there's a base, and then enough log to compensate for what I'm trying to carve. So that's pretty self-explanatory. Another thing that I do is I rip these logs down. So if I get, I use this chainsaw, which is really kind of a midway. It's a 20-inch bar. I could definitely use a bigger one. But for now, this gets my boards ripped. So if I find a piece that I can't use the middle, like this one, this is all eaten with ants, what I can do is I can cut the edges off after I stand it up, and I can rip it down, and what you end up with, it's kind of like a flat board like this. They call them slabs. They can make them into bar tables, whatever. I like to carve pictures in them and paint them, or make wall hanging sculptures, which I have a bunch of over here. As far as this chainsaw, I use this for preparing my logs, preparing my slabs, and if I have a really good idea on what I'm doing for a sculpture, I'll use this to block stuff out. Like, say, this was a log, and I knew how close I was coming in, I would take this, cut this out, and this would take this huge chunk out, and that makes it a lot faster work than with my carving saws, which is another saw that I'll show you. For smaller detail, I use what is called a dime tip bar. Standard size chainsaw is about 38 cc's, 40 cc's. They usually come with about a 14-inch bar like this one. This is just fine for carving. I do a lot of carving with this, lettering, anything. But if it's really intricate and I got to get in there tight, this makes a huge difference, as you can see. That's why it's called a dime tip. It's the size of a dime at the end. And that'll help when you want to get in to eyelids and nostrils and lips and all the things a monster saw like that would destroy. Now, one thing I've definitely found with chainsaw carving is repetition helps a lot. So when you're carving the same types of things over and over and over again, you get your cuts down and you start to eliminate larger pieces faster. It's cleaner. This was the first attempt at a fox. I did this at a carving festival, the Big Buzz in Vermont. It's in October. Definitely check it out. The tail broke off this guy, and when I wasn't paying attention, the bar went through his back leg. So there's really not much I can do to make this a finished piece. But when you start something out, you'll notice that there's a lot of rough cuts, and this is what I would call blocking, when you take larger pieces out and then you work your way down to smaller tools. And obviously this guy didn't get too far, so this is in the first phase of a carving. This went from tree to blocked out to a broken tail, and I was done. Alright, now this one is kind of in the next phase as to what I was talking to you about the fox. You get it blocked out, it's kind of rough. Once I get something shaped out to where I want it, detail carved out, pretty much you're not going to be running the saw anymore. I use a 4.5-inch grinder with a 24 grit sanding pad, and this will clean up any splinters and any rough edges like I was pointing out on the fox. This guy, I still probably going to carve some stuff into the base, but as far as muscle structure, the wings, the neck, the head, everything's where it's going to be. So as you can notice from the roughness of that to this, it's a lot smoother. The grinder will clean up a lot. You'll notice if I show you how this works from that point to this point, this actually does quite a bit of the work. I mean, you do all your shaping, but this is definitely a very important tool for finished look. So yeah, this is kind of in the second phase, and then once I get it sanded, then I have to decide how I'm going to finish it. So that would be about it for that. Okay, now there's multiple ways I finish these things. This is one of the first ways I finished them. You take a propane torch. I actually left mine in Vermont, so I can't show you it. It's really cool to watch. Big flame. Sounds really cool. This guy was burnt. So once I get everything sanded with the 4-inch grinder, and I'm not going to carve anything else, I get it cleaned up to about what I say it's done. I did this at that festival also. This was burnt. The finish on here isn't stained, and that's why you see the multiple tones, because it's heavier burnt in here. Now, it's basically just a propane torch, if you've ever seen one of those, and you just blast it. Once you get, you know, the darkest, as dark as you desire it, you take like a nylon brush. You can take something like this, or even like a smaller hand brush, and it'll actually brush the layers of soot off, and it'll leave you with this nice brown finish. Because what you've actually done is you've charred the outside layer, and then that ash, if you ever had ash on your hands before and you've spread it, it's the same kind of idea. And it actually helps seal the wood a little bit because pine has sap in it. These days I'm doing a little more finish with stain, and I have a few pieces I'll show you like that. Okay, now another way to finish these things is with just common stain. They make all different shades and colors, and I've been trying to utilize multiple stains in my projects. This is a sign. It's going to be going out to California once I get finished with it. This is ebony stain on the back, which is like a black, and when I'm finished I'm going to coat it with a natural, which is like a clear. One of my favorite things to do with these slab sculptures is, like this one is painted with acrylic paint, so this isn't really something that's meant for outdoors, but it starts out, it's a slab. I kind of sketch on with a framing pencil what I'm going to do, and then I take my dime tip and I sculpt it out. Once I get it where I want it, I can take it indoors at night, and when I can't carve during the day, I can paint at night, and I paint these, and people seem to really like these. This one's almost done. You can see some of the wood spots showing through. I have to go back and touch them up. The lighting at night inside is a lot darker than it is out here. You don't really notice it inside, but once you bring it outside, you can see all the holidays, so to speak. Another way that we finish things is with exterior paint, which is what this is for this jack-o'-lantern. This is exterior paint. You can leave this outside if you're going to paint your house bright orange. That would be what you'd use. So it's good for weather, you know, rain seals it. So far, this is a pumpkin my buddy made. Raw, people really like them raw. This has no finish on it at all. Don't know what it's going to do, if it's going to crack more than it should without it having a finish on it. But again, you could try something natural. This one's stained, so this is the same kind of idea, but it's got this is actually a classic oak, and this is I believe it's a early American stain on top. So we got a lighter and a darker. It kind of breaks it up a little bit. You know, in nature you got the orange would be the light and the green would be the darker, so kind of looks nice like that. Let's see. And so far that's pretty much all the ways I'm staining them. Linseed oil, and there's a couple other products you can use that will seal them depending on what they're doing. If you're going to be leaving it outside, it dries a lot slower, so you don't worry about checking, which is cracking as much. One thing I do notice is when like the bears crack, I hit them up with the same stain, and it kind of blends it into the hair. And this guy's got a little bit of checking going on, and before I touched it up, you could see it because you could see the color of the wood. And then once you add the black in there, it kind of actually adds to the dimension of the fur. So at this point, in 9 months of doing this is where I'm at with how I'm finishing them. Always talking to people and picking up new ways to do things. Okay, well, for the 9 months I've been doing this, I was able to show you sort of the tools I use, the materials I'm using, and I've been able to show you some of the stuff that I do. Visit the Squam Lake Science Center. I got a squirrel over there that I just delivered last week. It's 4 feet tall. He's pretty cool. As I said before, there's people that stop by every single day. I'm constantly talking to people from the area. I make all sorts of little signs like this. If you have an idea that you haven't seen, I'm definitely open to new ideas. I'd like to hear what you have to say. And as always, you're more than welcome to stop by.